What is your reaction to that and the fact that President Trump has gotten tough, saying he will pull federal funding unless they get a handle on stopping this anti-Semitism at universities across the country?
These universities are not entitled to those federal dollars. They have to ensure that they are protecting Jewish students on campus. So, again, we are just seeing a failure within higher education. The Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, has done a tremendous job forcing these universities to address this crisis on campus. And we're going to continue to use our ability on Capitol Hill and our appropriations and our oversight of these higher ed dollars to hold them accountable.
Now, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik and House Oversight Chairman James Comer are taking action against Harvard University. They wrote a letter to the school's president asking for documents about Harvard's compliance with civil rights laws, writing in part, quote, "It should come as no surprise that Harvard would continue to advocate for illegal discrimination and violate its obligations under the law, as it has a long, consistent history of defending racial discrimination and anti-Semitic activities on campus." Harvard recently, merely 2 years ago, fought all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States to defend the institution's desire to discriminate on the basis of race in admissions programs. And Congressman James Comer joins us now. Chairman, thank you so much for joining us. Harvard, you and Elise Stefanik, what's your take? What's the latest? Appreciate that letter. What do you expect is going to happen next?
Well, we're going to find out. We've requested documentation because at the end of the day, Jason, civil rights laws ban institutions from receiving federal funds if they're out of compliance with civil rights laws. And if you go back to the House Education Committee hearing when my colleague Elise Stefanik, who is a Harvard grad, asked the university presidents what their policy was against anti-Semitism, they wouldn't even answer. And it was very clear that that they didn't want to talk about it, that they weren't concerned about it, or that they were just willing to, allow anti-Semitism on campus. That is against federal civil rights laws. So if you look at the amount of money that Harvard University gets from the federal government, more than any other university in America, we could make a strong argument that they're out of compliance and should not receive a single penny of federal funds. So hopefully Harvard will work with us, we'll turn over the documentation, and we can review those documents and then proceed further.
Yeah, for Harvard to be sitting on something like $55 billion and getting billions of dollars in taxpayer money, while at the same time not tackling and solving this, they could resolve this pretty easily by making sure they protect Jewish students and their ability to roam on campus, be on campus, go unimpeded, and not feel like they're subject to these, these attacks on them personally, and making them feel uncomfortable and unsafe.
That's right. And I go back to George Washington University in Washington, D.C. My oversight committee, toured the demonstrations when they blocked buildings. They were blocking Jewish students from entering buildings at George Washington University, and nothing was being done. The local law enforcement wasn't going in there. The mayor wasn't moving. The university presidents were afraid to say anything publicly. I'm not going to say what they told us privately. But at the end of the day, you had similar situations in Harvard. We received messages not only from Harvard students, but their parents saying that their Jewish children do not feel safe on campus. And for Harvard to be, one of the flagship universities in America, to demonstrate this type of lack of concern for civil rights laws is very concerning. And then you throw on top of that, Jason, as we already said, the amount of federal funding they get. And let me be very clear with Harvard University. Their federal funding, 100% of their federal funding, is at risk if they do not comply with my and Representative Stefanik's request.
Well, I can't wait to see how that plays out. You also, as chairman, have some duties and responsibilities, and that is signing off on travel for members of Congress who maybe want to go to El Salvador to meet with people who have been deported. What's your take on this? What are you going to do with this?
Well, I had two members of the House Oversight Committee, Garcia from California and Frost from Florida, and they sat there silent during the entire Biden investigation, during the entire investigation of Border Patrol and Mayorkas that we had in the Oversight Committee. If anything, they were obstructive. They weren't concerned. They showed no concern for the lack of our national security or the violation of our southern border security laws. But then this one person that the liberal media picked up on that was deported to El Salvador, they went crazy before it came out that he was actually an MS-13 gang member, and they wanted me to authorize funding at my committee's expense to send them down to El Salvador and meet with this person for a photo op and to have margaritas and, enjoy the sunny weather. And I obviously denied their request. We're not going to spend a penny of taxpayer dollars for liberal Democrats to continue their stunts to try to appease the radical left-wing base when the American people spoke loud and clear on Election Day. They want our southern border secured, and they want criminal illegals deported, and that's exactly what Donald Trump's doing.
Well, one of the things, Congressman, that voters also said is I think they're fed up with these sanctuary states harboring people, not cooperating with ICE. You've got a hearing coming up. Tell us what you're doing with that, and what governors do we expect to see?
Well, we're going to have the governors of Illinois, Minnesota, maybe we'll remember that governor, Tim Walz, and the governor of New York. These are 3 sanctuary states. We had a hearing earlier with sanctuary city mayors that continue to obstruct Tom Homan's efforts to deport the criminal illegals. Now we're going into the governors. We're bringing the governors in. And again, their federal funding is at risk. We are serious about states and local governments and universities complying with our federal laws, with the Constitution, with civil rights laws. And what we have now are left-wing activist politicians who are not complying with our national security laws. We have a president that campaigned very transparently that he was going to secure the border and deport the criminal illegals. And to this day, we have governors and mayors in these big blue cities and blue states who are obstructing that. We're going to bring them in. We want the American people to see their position. We want them to state their position. And we want to make very clear that we expect them to comply with federal law or else. And that's what the committee hearing is going to be about. This is the first step. We're working closely with Tom Homan and ICE to make sure that we have accurate information that we're going to present at this hearing. And we look forward to hearing from the governors.
Yeah, they've got a lot to explain because these sanctuary cities, the states in particular, to have a criminal element, have somebody there who's been charged with serious crimes and not cooperate and communicate when there's a detainer put in place, it's just unbelievable to me that they would do that and then release these people out into the public and make their communities more dangerous. Congressman, I got to move on to this, though. China has been acquiring land. You showed up, you put out a pretty good map on this. China's been acquiring farmland and other types of land, coincidentally, near our military bases. What are you doing with this?
Well, we're trying to pass legislation to prevent it. But first of all, we're trying to identify where exactly China's purchased land. And that's a work in progress. I don't think anyone in the government prior to the Trump administration was very serious about identifying land that China owns near a military base. I have a military base in my district, Fort Campbell, Kentucky. There's a lot of farmland around there. And we know of instances where the Chinese have tried through back channels and LLCs and different side entities to try to gain access to ownership of that land. Why are they purchasing farmland near military bases? That is a question of national security of the highest regard. So we're going to, first of all, identify where all China owns land, and then obviously try to ban this in the future, but also try to figure out what to do with the land that they have. We have plenty of farmers in America that are trying to acquire farmland. They can't afford it. I'm a farmer in the private sector, Jason. I know all about farmland prices and what you've got, developers and foreign entities that have come in and driven the price of farmland up and made it impossible for farmers to be able to purchase land to grow crops. So there's so many things that are wrong with China having the right to buy farmland, not to mention the fact that it's near our military bases. So this is a big problem. We're trying to get a handle on it and then try to solve the problem.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about the Oversight Committee. You investigate anything, anywhere. Chairman James Comer, thanks so much for joining us on Sunday Morning Futures. Yes, happy Easter. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.